This podcast is sponsored by Wahoo, the first company to ever get me excited about a treadmill. Look, we all know that there's nothing quite like running outside, but the Wahoo Kicker Run is the next best thing. It's a high performance treadmill that responds to your running pace in real time. And that's not like other treadmills. You know, if you want other treadmills to do anything, you have to press buttons. But in the Kicker Run's run free mode, a sensor actually tailors the treadmill speed to your current running pace. So you can quickly accelerate or slow down without constantly pushing buttons. It's pretty much like you were running outside. Now, the first time I tried the Kicker Run, I couldn't believe how smooth it felt under my feet as I cruised at its fastest speed, 4 minutes per mile.
Dude, you lasted like 30 seconds at 4 minutes a mile.
It was like 45. Now, the Wahoo Kicker Run also integrates with a whole range of apps, including the interactive fitness platform Zwift Run, which takes you on a virtual course with real gradients, pace feedback, and other runners from across the world. And here's the best part. It allows you to properly keep up with your training on cold, wet, and stormy days, without awkward pace changes or desperate stares at the clock. And so when the spring finally comes, you're ready for race day.
Hold on. So that means that I can get to the Boston Marathon actually healthy and fit for the first time ever?
Exactly. Thanks to Wahoo for sponsoring this podcast.
I'm joined by the Billy Crystal of running, Alex Sear, the David Letterman of this podcast, Katelyn Tossi.
Okay.
And I'll be your Whoopi Goldberg, guys. My name is Michael Doyle, and we're doing the first annual MH Awards on this pod. So we're going to unpack controversies of the year, runners of the year, races of the year, performances, everything you can think of in terms of what we can award. We're going to do it. We'll do it Academy Awards style as well. But first, guys, I went to Hong Kong.
Yeah, we need to talk about this.
Yeah.
I feel, Michael, you and I text almost every day. I had a bit of a Michael withdrawal last week because I wasn't hearing from you. At one point, I got a little concerned, and I'm glad to see that you're back and in one piece. But also, I have no idea how this race went, so you need to tell us about this.
Michael, just in case you missed it, Alex also offered you his new Adidas shoes on a video.
Oh, yes, I did.
You need to watch. Yeah, you need to watch the whole bit. Okay, it's a bit. It's a bit.
He absolutely is going to gift them to you because he missed you so much.
So if you're listening and you're very confused right now, two things. One, Alex made a video where he reviewed the Adidas. Let me see if I can get the name right. Adidas Adios Pro Evo 1.
Nice.
Super duper shoe, hyper shoe. And at the end of the video, he teased that he was going to give me the shoes, and then took them back at the very end. Withdrew his offer.
Selective listening, Michael. Selective
and their
listening.
shoes
You
that I
just
so
heard the
badly
gift.
want. And so I was in Hong Kong for about a week, over the last week, and I was there for the UTMB TransLantau ultra trail event or events, because they had everything from 25K up to 120 something kilometers. And I am back here. I have made it back to Toronto, where I live. As you maybe, if you're a longtime listener, you can hear it in my voice that I sound a little different. It's because I'm absolutely destroyed by jet lag and running and heat and humidity and vomiting and everything. So
Wait, what?
Wait, what?
yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So I was invited by the good people that organized the event to come out. There was a nice little contingent of media from around the world to experience the event. And as many races do, they want you to run the event. If you're going to write about it, if you're going to do some sort of coverage on it, they kind of want you to experience it as well, which is cool, which is great. I was kind of wondering about that because I think it'd probably be better from like a journalist standpoint to kind of like observe from a certain remove and like go on the course and watch the various races and that sort of thing. But it's neat to do the immersive thing. So I immersed myself and literally the morning of the race signed up for the 50K. And we can get into that in a second. But I will say this first as an opener. When you guys think Hong Kong, like I don't think trails when I think Hong Kong, and
No.
I didn't. Now it's like after the, crazy giant, very vertical international port city of Hong Kong, I now think trails because there are a lot of them. Have either of you been to Hong Kong before?
No, I haven't.
No, but yeah, that's my vision of it in my head. It's a dense city, like
Hmm.
denser or as dense as anything that we have here in North America. It's kind of
Oh
like you
yeah.
think of New York, you don't think of trails when you think of New York City, and you don't think of trails when you think of Hong Kong.
Right.
And there are hundreds of kilometers of trails. So Hong Kong is a collection of islands that make up the city as a whole. So Lantau, which the namesake of the race, is an island itself, and it's this kind of beautiful, almost totally preserved and protected uh, national park that also makes up the entire island. And there's a couple of little small beach communities. So it's almost this like little weird weekend vacation bedroom community of Hong Kong Island, which is where the city you imagine in your head is Hong Kong Island, and then across the harbor, Kowloon, are the two big, huge parts of the city overall. And then Lantau is south of them, and it's this little kind of like magical getaway place. And that's where the race took place because there are like couple 100 kilometers worth of trails and
Wow.
lots of elevation because it's just basically these islands are old volcanoes. They're just giant series of mountains. Super cool.
Must have
Super
been
cool.
beautiful.
It was. So yeah, like the course itself was this mixture of like you're running single track along like a ridge where you see these incredible views of the ocean and the Hong Kong skyline in the distance. And then you delve into like super cavernous rocky sections where there's like huge old boulders from the old mountains, kind of like that you have to kind of scramble around in between. And then there's all this lush single track in a jungle, basically,
Wow.
which is really cool. Like first day I was there, they did the press conference, and one of the elite guys, one of the Solomon athletes who ran it last year and DNF'd, was like, "Yeah, so last year I had a tough time because I'm running in the lead group and we're doing the 100K and we're cruising along, and it's about 40K in, and then we had to jump over a python." And then that sent everyone in a panic, and we all kind of sprinted like a 3 something minute kilometer for a few kilometers. And then I was done and I DNF'd. And
Oof.
I was like,
Oh my
okay,
gosh.
pythons,
Okay.
cool.
I was gonna
What
ask,
else we
like,
got going on here? Yeah.
I was gonna ask what the wildlife situation was like over there because this is something I didn't realize when I went to the Alps back in September. One of the strong suits of the Alps as an exercise place, as a mountain running place, is that there isn't much dangerous wildlife. There are some snakes, but
Hmm.
not you don't really have to worry about that type of thing. There are sheep, birds. Hong Kong had pythons. Any other animals?
Water buffalo all over the
Oh,
place, on the
really?
course, on the single track.
Oh, wow.
And
And
they're
what did
like,
they tell you to do if you see a water buffalo? Because I'm feeling like that's what it's like here with cows. Like when we see a ton of cattle and it's covering the entire path, it's like, what do you do? Most of the time, you can pass by them, but you really shouldn't because if there are, young calves involved, you don't want to be close to them because, the mothers will get upset and they will try to like push you off the trail. So what do you have to do with water buffaloes? It's
Like
similar, like avoid them at all costs.
yeah, they don't really.
vomit and scare
They,
them off.
we'll get to that in a
We'll
second.
get.
That doesn't work. Sadly, I tried. Yeah, on your left doesn't work.
Nope, nope. I
Yeah,
wouldn't think it would.
maybe they're native Cantonese speakers. I'm not sure, but uh, I you just basically that was what I was told. Like identify whether or not there is young present.
Right.
If there are young
Yep.
present, you have to be fairly careful because they will charge you. But
Yep.
otherwise, they're fairly docile because these trails are well used. There's there are quite a few hikers out there, and they're sort of well loved trails. It's a big kind of, they call it that Lantau Country Park is most of the trail system there. So these animals are familiar with humans. You just kind of work your way around them, and you look for a little bit of a wider section of trail to get by them. But yeah, there was, like, I was on the course. The 25K was the last event of the weekend, and I was done all my racing, which we can get into in a second. And I decided to walk back onto the course with the race photographer and check out, like, watch the runners coming through and sort of explore the course a little bit. And there were 3 water buffalo at one point, a few kilometers in, and it was on a pretty tight little ledge. And you just basically had to, like, kind of like hug up against the rock wall behind you and allow them to just sort of wander on by. And they, like, literally just 3 of them just sort of, like, you know, moseyed on by me, like, just their horns brushing on against you. And then one of them stopped and, like, took a dump right in front of me. And I was like, oh, amazing. This is the experience I've traveled halfway around the world for. I will never.
And that's where the vomit
this.
comes in. No, not yet.
Yeah. No, thankfully my stomach was completely empty at that point. So,
okay.
Yeah. So about the race, I don't know how to start here. So Hong Kong's hot.
Yes.
It's really
I have
hot.
a runner who lives in Hong Kong, and he's always saying, well, the run was a little rough today because of the heat and humidity. And it's, the weather's pretty rough there.
I was told this is the best time of year, and everyone I visited with, everyone that I talked with that was like a local was like, no, this is like great running weather. Like, it's really cool right now. The humidity's fairly low.
Wow.
Okay, it was like 80 something degrees and 90% humidity at the start of the race.
Oof.
And
Wow.
that's low? Okay.
And
if those
that's
are good
low.
running conditions, I don't want to see a few months ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was very warm. It did not feel great. I won't make excuses beyond the excuses I'm about to offer you, which is I'd sweat through all of my gear. Like, I sweat through my pack at the start before I started the race. So I was like, this is not going to go well.
Dehydrated before you started.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So did you camel it? Did you carry a bunch of fluids with you, or did you rely on some aid stations?
So as somebody who's never run a UTMB event before, I studied the description of how the run of show, like how they were going to do things. And, you know, the checkpoints, which are basically the aid stations, there are 4 of them on a 50K, and they're pretty plentiful, but it's about 10 kilometers between each one. So you have to get to each one. And I was like, I knew I was going to need to be hydrating like the entire time, because I knew I was going to have a tough time. I have a tough time with the heat in Canada, so I'm going to have a tough time with the heat out there. Right. So you have to wear a small pack, because you have to, there's certain items, Katelyn knows all this stuff. There's mandatory items when you run an ultra, right? You have to bring a space blanket, a whistle. There's a couple of other things that you got to bring with you. And you also have to pack at least the vessels to carry at least 1 liter of water, if not them filled at the start line. So I decided to go, I had a little Salmon vest that I've got, and I went with 2 of the flasks in the front. I decided not to go with the bladder in the back, which I do have, but I decided not to go with it for bulk for the sake of lightness. Not sure if that was a good idea or a bad idea. It's hard to tell. All I can tell is, like,
I have a good trick with the bladder I can tell you about later, what, like, the strategy.
I feel like this is like almost like a separate pod where it's like, I can explain to you what happened, and then Katelyn will sit back and muse about it and be like, well, you did this wrong, you did that wrong, you did this wrong.
No, it's not that. It's just the whole, bladder bottle thing. There's some strategy to get into that.
I've always been a lighter, go on the lighter side person.
Yep.
And I didn't know what I was doing in this race. And I think that's the overall takeaway with this, is that, like, I'm a really experienced runner that's been doing this stuff for a long time. And I've done ultra stuff before. I've done long distance events before. But I'd forgotten that, or I'd neglected to incorporate into my planning and thinking that, like, a race is a race, no matter whether you're going to approach it by trying to run a goal time or run it really hard or place or whatever. Or, and when you go into an event, you need to be prepared for it. You need to have goals in mind. You need to have a plan. You need to take it seriously. You need to train for it. You need to approach that race with specific strategies. Right. And I kind of parachuted into this event having just finished the Chicago Marathon and recovered without doing a whole lot of running since running Chicago, and no heat specific training, no technical trail running practice, nothing. I did a little bit of trail running in the summertime, but that was about it. Mm-hmm. So I just sort of dove into this thing with my eyes closed head first, and boy, is that a mistake. And I should know better, and it's something that I will remember from the next time around, because I learned the very, very hardest way.
Oh no.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, guys, I'm cruising along. Oh, this is the other detail. And this will be fun for our listeners and viewers. I have shot video of the entire experience. So our producer, editor of our video content, Kosuke, he's going to get this huge footage dump in the next couple of days from my Hong Kong experience, and we're going to make a vlog about my trip to Hong Kong. Cool. Yeah, it's got a nice full size serving of humble pie right in the meat of the video. Okay. But I filmed segments. I basically made a plan where I was every few kilometers, I'm going to turn the GoPro on and I'm running along and I'm talking to myself and giving sort of an update as the experience and that sort of thing. I did spare our viewers the uncontrollable projectile vomiting that began at about 15 kilometers. I just couldn't keep anything in. Yeah.
Oh no.
It's do they dehydration, or is it just you ate something different, something you're not used to?
No, it was due to the heat and humidity. It was due to dehydration. Yep.
Okay.
It was it basically turns into this scenario where you're kind of you're in your electrolyte debt, your body's going into a panic, and everything you're taking in isn't really getting absorbed or going anywhere. It's sort of your body just turns into a mess. Anyway, my stomach turned on me. It was those old Saturday Night Live skits where the guys got the actors got the garden hose in their sleeve, and they're doing the just spray vomiting everywhere. And it was fluorescent yellow, so it's bile in my stomach, and it was I couldn't.
Michael.
I couldn't keep anything down. I kept trying, and then you get into a panic because you're okay, right. I got 35K to go. I am a mess right now. I have just ejected all of my nutrition and all of my hydration onto the course, and then you're trying to replenish, and it just, everything that went in came back out immediately. So I'll spare the listeners any more graphic details, but I managed to get to the 25K checkpoint. I think I got there under the cutoff. I'm not even sure, because I was such a mess by that point. I was doing a lot of walking and a lot of just dazed. It was just a mess. And that's
kind of scary though. Did you get really dizzy or yeah?
Big time.
Yeah,
totally dizzy. Anytime I did any elevation. And I gave this, I sat down in the checkpoint, which was so torturous, because it was this beautiful little beach community hidden on the south side of Lantau Island. It was just this incredible little utopia. There were families on weekend vacation there, playing in the beach in the sand, and I'm sitting there trying to get down a glass of flat Coca-Cola, and a cup of noodles, and it just won't go down. And I'm just if I go back out there, I might be leaving on a helicopter, so I'm not going to do that, because I don't really want to pay for a helicopter right about now. So that was the end of my day.
Wow. Yeah. The kids around there looking and asking their parents, what's wrong with this weird man? And they're oh, that's why you don't go to the club.
The guy right next to me was barfing over the side of the half wall onto the beach. Oh, no. So I didn't feel that bad. So I was okay. So me and him, actually, shout out to Simon from Hong Kong. He and I and a couple of others took the the area, the local bus back to the start line. And a nice Belgian man actually paid for my bus fare back to the start because I didn't even.
Oh, they didn't have anyone like available to pick you up or any. Oh,
They told you to
that's
pack 200 Hong Kong dollars to take a cab
okay.
if you got into trouble, but there was
Wow.
no such a small beach community. There was no cabs, so
Right.
found the bus stop, and it was like this. It was this sad lineup of people who had DNF'd at the checkpoint waiting for the bus. We're all like standing there, just like covered in mud and puke and tears, just standing there waiting to get on the bus.
Yikes.
I think for our listeners, you are sharing one of the moments from one of our previous podcasts when we said like, when do you DNF? That was a really good choice. That's when you DNF, because that can get really dangerous. If you're dehydrated like that and vomiting, you've got nothing in your system, it can get scary real fast. So you absolutely made the right choice. That's for sure.
And start to finish,
Yeah.
how many pounds, Michael, do you think you lost on that day?
A lot. I'd say like 5 to 8 maybe, because like I have lost over 10 pounds in sweating on long runs before, and I felt like there was nothing in me. So I was and I thought about you guys. I actually thought about both of you. I thought about our DNF question mark podcast episode, and I really struggled with it for a long time because I got a lot of pride. I had not DNF'd in a race since 2012, which wasn't even a real DNF. Like I got lost on a course. I got sent off course in a marathon, and shout out to the Hamilton Marathon in Ontario and their incredibly bad race marshaling. And that was like, I haven't DNF'd since like, I don't know, junior high school or something like that. And I was just absolutely beside myself that was happening. But at the same time, there was at 30K in this race, the biggest climb was like 750 meters of elevation climb, and then descent after in like a 3 kilometer amount. I don't even know I don't know what the grade is on that, but that's a nasty grade up and a nasty grade down. And
you're basically climbing. You're basically rock climbing if there's that much elevation in a few kilometers. That's crazy.
Yeah, and there was some fairly tough scrambling at the end of the 50K as well, from what I could gather. So I just would have been in trouble. And so it was the right move. It was just a tough thing to accept, to do that, especially when you come all that way. And especially in our case, when we go to cover an event and experience an event, to write about it, to make content on it, and we're there as guests of the event, anyway. They were cool with it. They're like, hey, this is going to be a great story. And I think the UTMB people were kind of into it because they're like, see, our event is really hard.
We broke Michael Doyle.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. We broke the journalist. He's going to go back to, he's lived to tell the tale, but that's about it. Anyway. So that was the experience. Listen, A++ to Hong Kong as a running destination. If you happen to be going there, bring your trail shoes, like crazy good fun trails to run on. Lots of technical stuff, but also lots of really runnable stuff too. And just a beautiful, wild place, like just an incredible city to visit, like just really one of the special international destinations to go to. Highly recommend.
Well, we're glad you're back, and that, things could have gotten worse, right? You could have been, I don't know, bitten by a python or trampled by water buffaloes. You've lived to tell the tale, and I guess that's what's important after your DNF, is to get back on your feet. So welcome back. And hey, what a way to get to race weight, is dropping all that weight in
Alex!
6 hours.
I don't think you're allowed to say that, man.
Yeah, I don't think so. Don't do this at home.
We all this to say, it will hopefully make for some pretty good content. We'll have a video out on it probably in the new year, because we're a bit backlogged with our video content. We've got a lot of stuff coming, a lot of gear, year-end stuff. Alex, I know you're producing that stuff right now. We've got the first iteration of that just dropped on our YouTube channel this week with your best training shoes of the year roundup. So my humbling experience in Hong Kong will have to wait, until January, but we'll make sure to mention it in a future pod if you want to check it out. It's tough turning the camera on yourself, especially in those dark moments, but I forced myself to do it. Okay, so guys, let's take a quick break, and then right after the break, we're going to get into the first annual Marathon Handbook Awards for 2024. Be right back. All right, and we're back. Gang, are you ready to give out some hardware?
I'm ready.
Absolutely.
Let's do
Ready.
this.
Time. The first annual MH Awards. We're gonna do that. We'll do this Academy Award style. We'll work through the what do they call them? The technical awards and the best supporting categories, the adapted screenplay, so on and so forth. And then we'll work our way up to best picture at the end here, which will be our best athletes of the year categories. So let's start off with our first award. Start off with a spicy one. The biggest controversy of 2024 award. This is an award that the winner will not want to accept. We send them the little statue. I'm not sure what our statue look like. It'll be like a little it'll be our chevron
Our
logo.
chevron.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think the person is going to want to accept this one, but let's go through it. Although I think there's one person on this list that may actually be like, yeah, that's right. I like controversy, but the rest of them not so much. Who do we got here? Let's go through who our candidates are for the winner, or nominees.
So I'll start with one, maybe the most present in people's minds. So we need to throw in the Ruth Chepngetich situation, let's call it, because it was more than just her incredible performance at the Chicago Marathon, which obviously she won in a new world record of 2:09, but it was the ensuing skepticism and scrutiny around that time. Many people around the world thought that that was just too fast. And so now we are left wondering, was this time legit? And that's enough of a controversy. Even Kenyan athletics, like Athletics Kenya, the national governing body, were talking about this in their national assembly, about how some people at Let's Run and other, media around the world were scrutinizing Ruth Chepngetich's time. So that's controversy number one.
Okay. We've got nominee number 2, Camille Herron. Controversy, where a bunch of months back, remember, she is a big ultra runner and took part in in a Lululemon ultra this year, breaking tons of records from different ultra distances and such. And she's very prominent in the ultra running world. She and her husband, Connor Holt, were accused of tampering with certain ultra runners' Wikipedia pages and also her own, right? So Courtney Dauwalter, Kilian Jornet, they were accused of tampering those Wikipedia pages and kind of trying to take some stars away from their achievements and kind of trying to puff up her Wikipedia page with some extra information, making her look better. And so Connor Holt, her husband, at the end took responsibility for all of this and said that Camille was not involved and that this pretty much stemmed from his frustration with how the ultra running records and statistics are presented and maybe some situations with Camille. So unfortunately, even though he took all of that responsibility, Camille was dropped from her Lululemon sponsorship, which was a terrible result for her because of this. So that is nominee number 2.
Nominee number 3, I've got down the Josh Kerr v. Jakob Ingebrigtsen battle. These two guys, they're two of the top 1,500 meter runners in the world, and they don't like each other at all. They talked shit about each other publicly for much of this year going into the Paris Olympics this summer, which hyped up the event into being like absolute must-see TV. And then And then neither of them won the gold medal in the end, which is interesting. But created quite a controversy, quite a lot of conversation about these two athletes, about athlete decorum, because I think runners in particular are often like maybe like almost too nice and too polite. But these guys were saying the quiet bit out loud in the media about each other all the time and continue to not like each other. So this is the one when I noted off the top that I think Mr. Ingebrigtsen in particular might accept our award if we were to send it to him. In this case,
I think Kerr would as well. But
Kerr would as
I think
well. You're right.
They'll
right.
both like it.
So that's our third nominee.
4, let's call it the Spring Energy Kerfuffle. So this comes from an American company owned by couple, David and Megan Roche. There were concerns over the safety and efficacy of certain products that they put out in the endurance sports community, namely, say it with me, awesome sauce.
Awesome sauce. Okay, we should
Awesome
say, Alex,
sauce.
that they were involved in the development. They did not own the company, though. Spring Energy
Okay.
is its own company. Just clarification there. Yeah.
And this was outed by podcaster and running coach Jason Koop, and left, I think, a lot of awesome sauce users a little bit confused and also feeling cheated. So this is controversy number 4, the Spring Energy Kerfuffle.
Okay, and I've got controversy number 5, which was Park Run. Everyone knows the beloved Park Run all around the world, 5Ks set up in different communities. I think it started off in Europe and it has become amazingly popular. And Park Run decided to remove its competitive stats, right? So it was going to take away the course records, the first finishes, the age grade records, because Parkrun said that it wanted to create a more inclusive environment for runners who were not competitive. So they wanted to, that was kind of their reasoning on erasing all of these stats. Well, this upset many of the park runners, the park runner regulars, because they wanted their stats up there. And those age group wins and statistics are important for a lot of people. So there was a petition signed by tens of thousands of people trying to get Parkrun to reconsider what they decided to do. And the petition, they wanted to restore all of the competitive stats. I think they got over 26,000 signatures. It could even be more than that. I think it's Russ Jeffries. He, the CEO of Parkrun, he was not swayed. And as far as I know, they have still not decided to reinstate Parkrun competitive stats as of. And so that's still kind of going on. That controversy has not been completely figured out as of yet.
All right, guys, those are 5 solid nominees. I'm sure 4 or 5 of those individuals or organizations are not thrilled to be on our controversy of the year list. I will say this, interestingly enough, it was pretty easy to pick these 5 because they were among 5 of our biggest stories in terms of like traffic. Like if you look at the raw numbers of the number of people who read these stories, these 5 stories were up there among the top 5 stories of the year for us, which is something that we will do before the end of the year. We'll do a roundup of like the top 10 stories of the year, basically voted by you, the audience, through your clicks. So who do we got here? Let's pick our first MH award winner. What is controversy of the year? We'll see if we can get consensus here. Alex, who do you got?
Okay, I want to put a big +1 to the Chepengedich controversy. I think, look, I'll break it down quickly. I think the Heron thing is silly. I think the Kerr and Ingebrigtsen rivalry is just sports.
Yeah.
I think with Chepengedich, it's existential because the controversy is not done. One of 2 things is going to happen in the next year, which will amplify it. Either 1, she's found to have doped, and then that just puts dims the light on the sport once again, because here we go. We have our fastest woman ever being a doper. We lose faith in the sport. Or we can't find anything on Chepengedich, and then that's almost more confusing because we got to come to the realization that as fans, we're not ready for the development, how quick and how fast and how sophisticated the sport has become. What if there's a man who runs sub 155? What if there's a woman who breaks 4 in the mile? What do we do with that? Do we keep throwing out doping allegations? I cannot pick something other than the Chepengedich situation. It just feels like it's much higher stakes than anything else on the list.
Yeah, you're making a great point, Alex. This is sort of like it's the crossing the Rubicon moment in this sport in a big way, where I think for a long time people have been cynical. If you're a really big fan of the sport, you can't help but to be a bit cynical about some of these like superlative performances. But this one was so superlative that it forced people like our very own Amby Burfoot to come out and write an opinion piece about how he can't trust it, or it's extremely hard to trust it. And saying this out loud, which was kind of like, a big no-no until this happened. So you're right. This is a big inflection point moment for the sport, and it's going to be really interesting to see how things go in the next few years. It's my vote as well. I think the awesome sauce thing in a weird way is also kind of interesting because it for me at least, I was like, wait a minute, there are no guardrails. There's no one watching who's doing what with these really important products. Like there's no real oversight body that makes sure all of these nutrition products actually have within them what they have, at least not in the United States or Canada. So, and I don't think Europe either. So, awesome sauce, it had like basically half or something around half the nutritional value, the pure carbs needed. And as I just experienced running half an ultra in Hong Kong, how important it is to kind of know what you're putting in and how many carbs you're getting and all that sort of thing. If the company's just straight up lying, you can get yourself in very serious danger, especially if you're out on the trails or on the mountains. So that was an interesting one for me. But what do you got, Katelyn?
Yeah, I mean, hands down, you guys just said it all. I mean, total agreement with Alex. I mean, the Curran Gibertson thing, like you said, it's just sports and it's interesting. It's making the sport even more interesting to watch. So, I mean, people are loving it. And yeah, I'm like you. I want to know what's in it opened my eyes with the awesome sauce controversy just to be like, okay, I've really got to pay a little more attention about maybe how I'm feeling after trying new products and all that kind of stuff. So I think from each of these controversies, we've probably learned something. But I'm absolutely going with Ruth, hands down. And I've loved reading all the different opinion pieces. And I think that, people like Amby and Alex Hutchinson from Outside and Jesse, our very own Jesse Carveth, I love reading all of the different studies and all the different opinions and everything that they've thrown together, because it really makes you sit back and think. And I mean, I think probably all of us have been going back and forth on this situation, and we really don't know what to believe. And there's just so much, to look at out there. So anyway, I'm absolutely going with Ruth. I think we're all in agreement on this one, guys. We have our number one.
A non-controversial beginning to this awards ceremony for the controversy of the year.
Oh, the irony. Now, so we'll send the award to Ruth Chepengedich in Kenya. I'm sure she'll be happy to accept that award. All right, let's move on to the next one. The defining moment in running of 2024. And this is it's a broad one because defining moment could mean many different things. So Alex, who do we got first in our nominees?
Defining moment number one actually starts pretty somber notes. So Kelvin Kiptum's unexpected death back in February. So just months after breaking the men's world record, running too flat, the news came out that he had deceased. He was found dead, and that impacted the running world everywhere. He was the closest man to ever break two. And so that's our number one.
Okay, and for nominee number two is a bummer, Athing Mo, the American athlete and a two-time Olympic gold medalist. When she was in the Olympic trials this year in 2024, she fell during her race and she placed last in the 800-meter final. And so that took her out of the runnings for the Olympics. And she was kind of the big star we had going to the Olympics for the U.S. in the 800 meters. So that was a big bummer.
Yeah, that moment really sucked.
Yeah, that really did.
And really changed the comportment of the 800 in the Olympics as well.
Yep.
So our third nominee is on a brighter note, Jasmine Paris, the ultra runner, finished the Barkley Marathons, the infamous, very, very hard, very screwy, intense ultra event in Tennessee. She was the first woman to ever finish the event, and one of very few people to ever finish the event, period, because there are years that this race goes by and people don't finish it. It's widely thought of as maybe the hardest endurance sports event in the world, and maybe one of the hardest sporting events, period, in the world. And she got it done, and in dramatic fashion. She finished, you get 16 hours to get it done, and she finished with 99 seconds to spare. And it was a breathtaking performance to follow live, which we did. We covered it live. So really big moment, I'd say, in this year. Next one.
Number 4 is Sifan Hassan taking a massive bite out of the Olympics and racing in the 3 longest running events: the 5,000, where she earned bronze; 10,000, where she earned another bronze; and then finally the marathon, the last event of the Olympics, where she won gold.
Okay, we've got a couple other additions here, marathon related. The new addition to the Abbott World Marathon Major Series is the Sydney Marathon. It was accepted into the group, and so now we're waiting to see that 7-star finisher medal with this new addition.
Last one for our defining moments of 2024 is another major marathon related news item that we reported on in the last, I think, month or two now. And that's that the Boston Marathon has revised and changed its qualifying times, and it raised its standards, made them more difficult across the board, breaking thousands of people's hearts in the process and creating
Yes.
a lot of anxiety, even for our very own Katelyn Tossi, who thankfully she squeezed under the wire for this year, but now it's just basically like moving forward, everyone's just got to run a lot faster. And it's the first time they've changed the qualifying standards in some time, and they've made it as hard as they've ever been, or they've been in many, many years. So I'd say that was a pretty big defining moment, especially for a lot of our listeners out there who are vying to try to get into that Boston Marathon, perhaps for the first time. It's a lifetime achievement for a lot of runners, right? So, okay, so who do we got here? We've got a lot of nominees, some sad stuff, some positive stuff as well. Who's your pick?
I'm gonna keep going on that Boston note. I'm gonna go with the Boston standard changes. So
Really?
I think
Okay.
because I actually think that it's significant and it's a sign of the times in running. We're in the middle of a running boom, and it's not enough to say that this running boom is like maybe a previous running boom where a lot of people got into running just for the participation element of it. Here I'm talking, 7, 10 years ago with the growth of the mud runs and the color runs and the really participatory element of running being brought up. Now I think people are getting into running and they enjoy the competitive side of it. They get into running and it's not enough to finish. They also want to improve their times. And I think that's awesome. And I think that what's happening with Boston is just a sign of that. More people care about running fast. Running fast is not just for the elites. It's about running faster than where you were. I think that is the defining story of running right now. And I want that to be the case. I'll I'll continue with a story that might make people not like what they're about to hear. But look, when Michael and I were at the Boston Marathon this year, hanging around the finish line, we spoke with people of all speeds and who were there for a bunch of reasons. And a few of them were, runners who got in from the charity side of things or influencer side of things. And I'll say it, when I had a conversation with someone who didn't seem to care at all about what their time was going to be the next day, it felt strange. Your performance should matter. If you're at a marathon major, you should care about it. I don't care what your end time is, but it's important that you want to do your best. And I think that Boston getting faster shows that that's where the race and all the other races are going. And I'm a total supporter of that. So that's my defining moment.
Okay.
Wow, I was not expecting that. That's, I mean, very, very compelling argument, though. It's sort of,
Yeah.
again, you're taking it 30,000 feet up and you're giving us the existential perspective on running. I like it. Katelyn, what's your pick?
Okay. Yeah, I went in a completely different way, but I think that
Okay.
that's kind of all part of it. I mean, I do just want to mention Kelvin Kiptum because I think it's just really important to mention him there because I mean, he was such an important piece of running. He is such an important piece of running history. We all like to think about what would his potential, what would it have been if he were able to run that next marathon, and would we have seen him break the 2 hours? I really think we would have. And so I just want to mention him as a side note there because it was, a really huge loss to the running community. And he'll be remembered in the history books forever. But my defining moment really took another turn. And I really connected with Jasmine Paris's win at the her finish at the Barkley Marathons. I mean, it was such a win for trail runners and especially women trail runners this year. And she was just such an inspiration in general because, I mean, this race is the race that eats its young, right? That's what Laz always says. And we had Laz, and even though I feel as though it was a comment made to egg on women runners, he said, well, my race is just too tough for women. And he probably said that on purpose to get us even more fired up, and really wanting to be able to finish that race. I mean, there have only been before Jasmine, there were only 17 total finishers in history of this crazy 5-loop ultra. I mean, even my all-time favorite Courtney Dauwalter had given it a try and wasn't able to. We just think that she is unstoppable, like woman of steel, right? So when Jasmine Paris came in and finished with that amazing dramatic finish, 99 seconds to go to the 60-hour time limit, I just feel like it wasn't just about her finishing that race, but it was kind of like projecting to runners all over the world, like, yeah, we can do it, you can do it, I mean, and it just showed this incredible toughness. And I'm one of those people that really likes to see that tough side of people and being able, the mental grit, the physical toughness to get through things. And I think Jasmine, shots heard around the world when she was able to finish the Barkley Marathon. So she is going to be my winner for this category. Michael?
Yeah, when I think defining moments, the very first thing I think about is who, in what situation, like in what of these has my non-running friends come to me and said, like, what's the deal with ... because the story, the moment, the tragedy has permeated up to the mainstream. And, I get the text from my non-running friends, or I get it sort of like inserted into the conversation when I'm having like the weekly check-in call with my parents or whatever. And all of these moments were actually talked about at some point, to some degree or another. Like my dad was asking me about like I heard the Boston Marathon. I heard it got harder. Are you still okay? Are you able to qualify? That sort of, and then like, in Hong Kong last week, on my travels, hanging out with a group of people who are really dialed into the trail scene, but maybe not so much on the road running scene. People talking about Sydney, like, have you run this race before? Is it a good race? That sort of thing. For me personally, I think the defining moment of 2024 is on a somber note, which is, I think it's Kelvin Kiptum's death. And the reason why I say that is we're now well aware that we're just exiting the Eliud Kipchoge era of marathon running. And he did so much. We did a whole podcast on him just last week. He did so much for the sport, and he's changed the marathon in such a dramatic way. And it just felt like Kelvin Kiptum was the heir apparent, and he was the next one.
Yep.
And someone we needed so badly to step in and sort of grab pick up the gauntlet from Kipchoge that he had thrown down and carry it to the next level and take us to the sub 2, the sub 2 paradise of in marathon running, and also to push innovation, technological innovation, and also performance, our understanding of human performance to that next level as well. And he was also such a special character. I mean, you guys have touched upon the details already, but like ran 3 marathons, has got the craziest average for 3 marathons in history. He'll probably go down in history as probably, one of the GOATs with just 3 marathons under his belt before he died.
Mhm.
And it was also one of those moments where I remember where I was when I found out that he died. I was
Yep.
driving home. I was coming home from our family cottage on a Sunday night, and I got a text from somebody in the running world who's like in journalism and media in the running world. And they're like, I just heard that this happened. And I literally said to my wife, I have to go to work, and jumped on it immediately and started digging into it and reporting on it. And it was just one of those moments where like a real sad moment, but a really important moment and big moment in the year in sport. So that's my pick, but obviously we've all 3 of us have got different choices here.
You can
I can
sway
be
me,
swayed.
Michael. You can
Oh,
sway.
No,
I
I
think
think you can sway us.
I was debating
Yeah.
between talking about Boston or talking about Calvin Kiptum. The more I think about it, the more I wonder if there's a bit of recency bias there. So this was the first thing to happen
yes.
in our list, right? This was in February. So when we're evaluating this, you got to think we're not immune to these psychological things either.
Yeah.
And I mean, my God, Calvin Kiptum was barely 25, right?
Mhm.
The more you think about it, the more you think that this is, and maybe we're not seeing the full severity of it yet because it's so early, but this was a Steve Prefontaine moment, and we're still talking about Steve Prefontaine.
That's
So
right.
we probably won't talk about the Boston Marathon standards getting a little bit faster in 2025 in 20 years time, but people won't forget the name Calvin Kiptum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Yeah, you can sway me as well, Michael. Of course, that's also why I mentioned him first before going on to mine. And I feel super lucky. I think I mentioned this in a podcast, but last year at the running event, I was able to meet Calvin Kiptum, and he was just such a humble, sweet person, talking to me about what he eats before a marathon, like just giving me
Putting up
these
with your
tips.
like your questions, like, so what should you eat before
Yeah.
the morning of the marathon? And he's like,
I was like, yeah, I was like completely starstruck, and he just put up with me so nicely with such beautiful humility. So you can absolutely sway us, and we can, of course, present this award to Calvin Kiptum.
yes, in honor of him. Yeah, it's tough to give an award to somebody who has passed away, but definitely the defining moment of 2024 in running, for better or worse. Somebody will be sorely missed. Okay, so let's move on to the next one here. Running event of the year. Okay, so we've got some interesting nominees here. Alex, why don't you take away with the first one?
So we'll start with the women's Paris Olympics marathon, which we gave it away a little bit, defined by Sifan Hassan's victory after medaling twice on the track and also taking down a very deep field. So that's number 1.
Okay, and for number 2, we've got the Chicago Marathon, mentioning again Ruth Chepnget's new women's marathon world record of 2:09:56, the first sub 2:10 women's marathon.
Okay, so the next one is on a similar note, the London Marathon back in April, where a women's only world record was set. So there is 2 different world records in women's distance running. There is the overall world record, that's with male pacers. In the case of Ruth Chepnget, she had 2 male pacers helping her. And in this case, it was only female pacers and female runners in the elite group in London. They set this race up just for that. And Perez Jepchirchir set a new world record of 2:16:16 at that women's only moment within the London Marathon, which obviously is men's and women's.
Number 4, the very recent New York City Marathon, which was celebrated as the largest marathon event in history, the most amount of participants. So we had 55,646 runners participating, which I suppose, again, signals the state of distance running in the world and current running boom. So that's number 4.
Okay, and our last one, we are double dipping with the Barkley Marathon. marathons. And the first woman, Jasmine Paris, who we mentioned, was the first woman to finish the Barkley Marathons. And guys, let's see, 4 out of 5 of our nominees are women's. We have all have to do with either women putting setting a world record, Olympic record, finishing the Barkley Marathons for the first time. I just noticed that that similarity between almost all of our nominees, 4 out of 5.
That is true. And I will say that when we were putting together nominees for other categories that we've yet to get to, it was really easy to nominate women's performances, and it was a little bit more of a stretch for the men's performances.
How funny, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a big year. Okay, what's your picks, Alex? What do you got?
I'm going to go with the Chicago Marathon, primarily because of Chepngetich's performance. I think that's one that we'll remember. And we talked about Chepngetich, but I also think that the Chicago Marathon deserves to be called the 2024 running event of the year for a secondary reason, and it's not completely unrelated. We've talked about this many times in past podcasts about the separate identities of marathon majors, and we've called Boston historic, we've called London touristy, and we struggled to christen one as the fast major marathon. It used to always be Berlin. Chicago was maybe a runner-up in that category, and I think this year and last year there's been a whole lot of evidence that Chicago should potentially be called the fast marathon. And I think this year was another version of that. Of course, Chepngetich's performance matters here, but also the men's race was much faster than the Berlin men's race of 2024. John Cougar taking the win in 2:02. So I think this is a changing of the guard when it comes to fast majors. And I think Chicago this year finally has taken the title away from Berlin, which couldn't rely on a fast Kipchoge or Bekele finishing. And so I think this is defining moment for Chicago, and I think it deserves this award.
Katelyn.
Okay.
Who you got?
All right. I am choosing the women's marathon in the Paris Olympics. And I think because I loved watching Sifan Hassan race. I mean, she was just a master during that race. I mean, they were running in challenging conditions. You know, it was hot. It was hilly. And she was able to, like, that sprint finish. I actually watched it again yesterday, and it was just so incredible to watch how she sprinted to the finish. I mean, arms and legs flailing everywhere, just pushing. Like, I felt like I watching her run at the end was like when you're a kid and you're making that like sprint and you're like you're just doing whatever you can. I mean, technique can go out the window. It doesn't matter. She was pushing with every ounce of whatever was left in the tank, and it was just incredible to watch her beat out Asefa in that sprint to the finish, you know, looking over her shoulder, I'm like, don't look over your shoulder, just go. You've pulled away. And so it was only by a few seconds, and I just loved watching her race. So I would say that I was going to choose the Paris Women's Marathon Olympic final because of that amazing sprint finish. Michael?
I am going to agree with you, Katelyn. I also think that was the race of the year. I think that, you know, to cheat a little bit, you could bundle the men's and the women's Olympic marathons together, but there was just a real high watermark of distance running in 2024. It was really exciting to watch both races. We covered them both very closely. We did instant reaction podcasts for each. I thought the men's marathon was super fun and was super jacked to watch that. And then the women's marathon just sort of like somehow outdid the men's marathon. And that performance was I think an absolutely defining moment in distance running history. Her sprint at the end. That's like, when you're thinking highlight reel, when you're putting together a package of like the history of the marathon, you're going to have like, Bekele running barefoot to win I believe it was the Rome Olympic marathon back in the day. And you're going to have Sammy Wanjiru famously winning in 2008 in Beijing in incredibly hot and humid and gross conditions. And then you're going to have Sifan Hassan out sprinting at the time the world record holder in the marathon, Tigges Assefa, and just really one of the most exciting moments in Olympic sports history. So I got that one. A close second for me was kind of a blend of Chicago and New York, because I think not so much for Chepton Gedich's world record, which obviously is a huge moment and an incredible performance, whether you think it's clean or not. But the New York City Marathon, Chicago Marathon, and London, London Marathon as well. They're all 50,000 plus finisher events. It's like we're getting into this kind of like world marathon major mega marathon phase in participation in distance running, which is interesting. But I got the women's Paris Olympic Marathon. So I think we're going 2-1 here. Are you okay with that, Alex?
We need consensus, right? Okay, yes, because I do remember loving, loving, loving to watch that event, so I can be swayed.
All right.
Nice.
So the running, I guess the race of the year or the running event of the year is the women's Paris Olympic Marathon. Okay.
Awesome.
Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to go right into our major categories, our best actor, best actress, best picture of the year level categories right after this break. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back. Okay, so it's what is this, hour 4 of the Academy Awards? They're usually like 18 hours long. Okay, so let's get into our various runners of the year categories here, and let's give out the hardware. Let's start off with Inspirational Runner of the Year, Inspiring Runner, and Inspiring Performance of the Year. We have 3 nominees. Alex, why don't you kick it off with our first nominee?
All right, so we're starting with Vincent Brouillard, who is a French ultra runner, has been a UTMB fan his whole life, had worked as a volunteer, had crewed for others, and then his love for trails eventually led him to a job as a product engineer at Hoka. So he worked on Hoka's new or latest training shoe and basically made it for himself, because he wore this shoe to this year win his first ever UTMB championship.
It's a good one.
Okay.
Nominee number 2.
Nominee number 2. Again, I think if we have a winner for the most nominated runner, it would be. Can we have an award for that? It would be Jasmine Paris. We've got her again here. As I mentioned earlier, being the first woman to finish a Barkley Marathon, she has inspired the entire running community, not just trail, but women and men everywhere. So we're going to have her also as our most inspirational runner of the year for finishing that.
And our third nominee in this category of Inspirational Runner of the Year is the British extreme long distance runner, Russ Cook, otherwise known as the Hardest Geezer. Now, you may remember his exploits from, he ran across from the southernmost point to the northernmost point of Africa and became the very first person to accomplish that. He started the run in 2023, but he finished in April of this year. So we're counting it as a 2024 performance. Got a ton of media attention, crazy story. I mean, the guy was like robbed and faced potentially being kidnapped. He ran across 16 countries. It was, how far did he go? 10,000 plus miles in his run. I mean,
Wow.
Absolutely insane. Documented the entire thing. Completely crazy. And then to top that all off, during the Euro Cup, the soccer tournament in Europe in the summertime, he decided to run from England to Germany to watch a Euro Cup match. So,
my gosh.
just a little like post race shakeout run, so to speak, in the grand scheme of things.
Why not?
So he is the third nominee for Inspirational Runner of the Year. What do you guys got? Alex, who's your pick?
Look, coincidentally, the Hardest Geezer is what I call you, Michael. My pick is Vincent Brouillard. As much as that like run across Africa is amazing, it's I think too hard for me to comprehend. I can't wrap my head around it. So there's a bit of emotion to this for me.
You're
What
not
I
inspired to run across Africa, is what you're saying.
I'm not particularly inspired to run across Africa, not yet. But what I am inspired by, where I can't see myself doing that. What I can see myself in is Bruyal's journey from fan to athlete. I think all of us have a version of that. We're big fans of the sport, and whenever we can, we try to put our imprint on that sport as much as we can. So that was you, Michael, in Chicago. That was you, Katelyn, in your recent race, and that was me in the half marathon in the fall. Going from covering a race to trying to be an active participant in it. And I can't think of someone who did that in a bigger and better way than Bruyas. So my vote goes to him.
Oh, Katelyn, aren't you fired up that we've got Alex like drinking the ultra Kool-Aid here,
I
and
love
he's
it.
like,
Enjoy it while it lasts.
I'm going to love it. And I am absolutely with you, Alex, 100%. I can't pronounce his name so beautifully with the accent as you do, but I am with Vincent. I absolutely love an underdog story. And there is not a better story this year of an underdog story than Vincent. I mean, watching him come from, 20th place or wherever he was in the beginning of the race and just pick off all of the elites one by one by one and win UTMB was just something that I loved to watch. And I just think that it was a spectacular show for everyone in the ultra world, someone that was not even spoken about. They weren't even discussing him probably that much before the race was going on. And so I am absolutely with you. Going with Vincent. He was inspirational. He was super inspirational. Michael?
guys, you guys are both, I mean, it's a great story, but like, you guys are both, it's Jasmine Paris. Come on. Like, she's the first woman to ever finish the Barkley Marathons. You know, the amount of like global media attention that pulled was insane. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I can tell you guys right now that was the biggest thing we covered by a long shot this year. Crazy amount of eyeballs on it. People were so into it. She was the most inspirational runner of the year by a long shot. And so much so that the friggin' King of England was inspired by her and made her a member of the Order of the British Empire. And like, she's knighted. She's Dame Jasmine Paris. I mean, how many other dames do you guys line up against in a race? And yeah, exactly. None. Because there aren't any. So
how many other people became dames by chasing book pages inside of the woods? Here's my issue.
Exactly.
I don't get the Barkley. I don't get the Barkley.
Oh, you gotta go. Alex, we gotta go. We gotta make the journey in March, April down to Tennessee.
It's just a different
I've been to
sport.
the event. It's so crazy.
I'll crew
It's
you
just a
guys.
different sport.
No,
I'll crew you guys. I'm not running.
Oh no, I'm not. No, I'm.
I can't
I
find
am not
myself
doing
out of
that
my
event.
village, man. I can barely get out of this condo without getting lost.
Yeah.
You think I'm going to do the Barkley Marathons?
I've seen some absolute monster runners just be completely crushed by trying to do the first
Yeah, no
lap
thanks.
of that course.
No
So.
thanks.
But it's got to be Jasmine Paris. I mean, think about the reach. Think about the number of like Katelyn, you said it yourself, the number of like women she's inspired in trail running and running and sports overall. I mean,
You're right. I mean, yes, since I already
Katelyn, no!
but listen, since
Katelyn,
wait.
come to the dark.
But
Come join me.
Since I already chose her, I was also trying to be very fair. And I do love what Vincent did. I think, maybe it was a little quieter than the scale of Jasmine's, but it doesn't make it any less inspiring what he did. And he does, for that quieter runner, that underdog runner, it really just inspires maybe the running community more on a human level, on a recreational runner level. Obviously he was an incredible runner to begin with, but it just makes us feel like, we can do it. Her as well. It's really tricky, guys. I don't know what to say. I don't know how
We got to pick one. We need consensus here.
Oh boy.
And I don't want to be a bully, but like
I also don't want to be a bully, Katelyn, but if you flip sides, you're totally wrong.
Hold on. You guys both have Briard, right?
Yes, I think.
Okay, so I lost.
We won for majority.
We'll go Briard.
We'll
go Briard. We'll go Briard. I can already feel the comment section warming up here. I can feel people just being if you're listening or watching this right now, please make a comment. That's all I'll say.
I love Jasmine. We love them all. Okay, sorry. Okay. You guys know how I feel
All
about
right.
conflict.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. So we can keep this family, this potting family together. Let's move on to one of the big awards, the Best Actor Award, the Male Runner of the Year. Let's do the nominations. Alex, who do we got first?
Well, speaking of conflict, let's start with Jakob Ingebrigtsen. So this has nothing to do with his battle with Josh Kerr, though it's hard to separate him from that. But the truth is, even by himself, without all the controversy and the rivalry, Ingebrigtsen had a year for the ages. So he set a new 3,000-meter world record of 7:17, beating Daniel Koeman's long-standing 3K record that at once was considered impossible to beat. He won 5,000-meter gold at the Olympics and was the Diamond League champion in the 1,500. He's raced a whole bunch of times, twice European gold medalist on the track. It's been a lot of Ingebrigtsen this year, so he's our nominee number one.
Who do we got second?
All right, number 2, we have Noah Lyles, your boy, Michael. Noah Lyles.
My boy. Great.
No. Okay, we've talked a lot about Noah Lyles this year. Not only is he an incredible U.S. track star, he won the gold medal in the 100 meters in the Olympics. He won the bronze medal in the 200 meters in the Olympics. And he has also done a lot of work to promote track and running spectators across the world. So he's a big showman. He just did a race with a famous influencer, with a YouTuber, a 50-meter race. He's really trying to get running on the map. And so he is our nominee number 2. Number 3?
Ethiopian distance runner Yomif Kajelcha, who I guess his biggest accolade of the year, it's a good one, is he's just recently set the half marathon world record for the men's world record time, half marathon time by 1 second, but a second still counts. He lowered it down to 57:30 on the nose at the Valencia half marathon just a couple of weeks ago. Big performance by him. He also ran the 10,000 meters in the Olympics as well. I think, and this is not a future award, but I'll just put this out there. I'm curious to see him in the marathon. We're going to start talking about who could break 2 hours in the marathon in the next couple of weeks, especially going into the Valencia Marathon if that happens. And I think this guy is a guy that we have to watch in the next couple of years. Mm-hmm. That's nominee number 3.
Number 4, turns out that, if you're new to watching distance running, Ethiopia has a lot of fast runners. So Kamirat Tola being another one of them. In fact, Ethiopia is so fast that Tola, who is a bronze medalist from the Tokyo Marathon, bronze medalist from the 2023 London Marathon, and gold medalist from the 2023 New York Marathon, did not even make his country's Olympic team. When a certain Kenenisa Bekele pulled out of the Olympics, they had a spot to fill, and so the Ethiopian Olympic team sent Mr. Tola, who went on to win the entire Olympic race. And so he's now your defending Olympic champ.
I love that performance too.
Yeah.
Who do we got as our last nominee for male runner of the year?
Okay, well, number 5. You guys know how much I love a sprint finish, and we have Cole Hawker, who won the Olympic gold and set the Olympic record in the 1,500 meters with 3:28 performance, and he was the one who edged out Josh Kerr from the gold and Ingebrigtsen from a medal in general. So Cole Hawker was a bit of an underdog, made this amazing sprint surprise finish to take the gold.
All right, guys, those are our nominees. Who do we got? This is a tough one. This is a really tough one. It's an open field.
It is tough,
Alex,
but I have a clear one. Go ahead, Alex. Let's see.
Okay.
So I went with consistency. Some of these athletes, I think, are there because of one major awesome performance. I went the other way and I chose Jakob Ingebrigtsen because not only does he have those awesome performances, he has many of them and he has so many moments. So break it down. Like we said, world record in the 3,000 meters, Olympic gold in the 5K, Diamond League champ in the 1,500, fastest 1500-meter runner in the world this year, barely missing out on the 1500-meter world record of 326. He's run 326.73. And I think it goes even beyond all of these incredible accolades. He's kind of a renaissance man, and I think running needs that right now. He's gone from he's transcended his image of cookie cutter Norwegian who comes from a whole family of cookie cutter fast Norwegians and has become his own athlete. He ran a half marathon this year. This should not be in his like acceptance speech if he is to win that.
Yeah,
He
no.
ran a half, but it's awesome. Okay, he ran a half marathon this year and had the gall to think that he could open up in a 27-minute 10K, which led him to walk part of it and run a 63, which obviously a bad performance, but it means he's a guy who's not afraid to try new things. He's got it
Yeah.
all. He's got the stunts, he's got the goal, but also he's just got that crazy consistency. He's never a non-factor in a race, except for maybe that half marathon, notwithstanding. He's my winner. He's my winner. I love to watch him run.
He might have the world record for fastest half marathon with a good walk in there.
Likely.
Right?
You try to run
Yeah.
a 63 while walking.
Yeah. Wild. Katelyn, who do you got?
Yep.
Who's your pick?
Ingebrigtsen, hands down. For the same reasons. I don't have to rattle off all his numbers again, but absolutely also liked that he tried out the half marathon. But I mean, he's just an all around, 1,500, 3,000, 5,000, all around amazing runner, consistent. And I really like the way he races. I like to watch him race also.
I looked down at all these nominees and Noah Lyles, if he would have doubled up in the gold, I think he might have been the runaway pick.
Mm-hmm.
Kajelcha, if he would have grabbed gold in the 10K and 10,000 meters in the Olympics, and then also set that half marathon world record, that would have probably elevated him. Tamarit Tola, I love that marathon performance in the Olympics. It was super fun to watch as well. He just totally dominated. If he would have won New York, that would have probably been my pick. Cole Hawker, Olympic record 328 in the 1500 meters, kind of came out of nowhere. Really fun race to watch, but he's sort of also missing that kind of depth to his year of performances. Although he ran really well with a lot of confidence after that Olympic performance in the Diamond League events afterwards. So my pick, we're consensus here. Jakob Ingebrigtsen. I not only is it the performances, I have to say that like he's a really compelling character in the sport, and somebody like a vital character. He can play the villain. I think he's gonna have he's kind of a wrestling villain in a way, and I think he's gonna have a turn where he's gonna become a hero in the sport in the near future as well. I think maybe if he pivots into, say, the marathon in the next 4 or 5 years, he could become somebody that we start to really root for to have these big performances. And he's someone we're starting to know really well because he's just been in the game for so long. He's so young.
He's 24.
He is so
He's
young.
24
Yeah.
years old. That's crazy. Yeah. So I think, clean sweep here. Jakob Ingebrigtsen, come up to the podium here. Come up to the stage and accept your award. The first Marathon Handbook Male Runner of the Year, Jakob Ingebrigtsen. All right, let's go to the next gigantic award here, and this is a tough one.
Yes.
Female Runner of the Year. Who is our first nominee? Alex.
Okay, so our first nominee, no matter what you think about this, you cannot sidestep it. Ruth Chepngetich currently has the women's marathon world record, 2:09:56.
Okay, for number 2, we've got Faith Kipyegon, right? A Kenyan distance runner. She currently has a world record for the 1500 meters, and she has won gold in the 1500 meters in 3 Olympics. So she is a big champ there, and she is a former world record holder for the 5000 meters. Let's just throw that in there.
Next, her fellow countrywoman, Beatrice Chebet, who, let's go through this here. This is quite the 2024.
Mm-hmm.
She won the 5,000 meter gold and the 10,000 meter gold at the Paris Olympic Games. That's no small feat. And also earlier this year, she ran a world record in the 10,000 meters on the track in an event where she was not set up to be the person to set that world record. But she was like, F this. I'm the boss. I'm taking this world record myself, and did so at the Prefontaine Classic in Eugene, Oregon, before the Olympic wind up, which is impressive to create such a long season as well. So she is the third nominee. Who do we got fourth?
Nominee number 4 is the track queen, Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. So new world record in the 400-meter hurdles. Pre-Olympics, all the talk was who is going to come out on top, Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone or Femke Bol, her Dutch counterpart at the Olympics. It wasn't close. McLaughlin-Levrone showed that she is by far the 400-meter hurdles GOAT.
Okay, for
Set
number
and broke her world record twice in the year.
yeah,
Sorry.
set
Yes.
no, set and
Add that
broke
in there.
her own world record over and over.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
That's wild.
All right,
She's Usain bolting the
yeah,
the 400 hurdles.
Yeah.
love it.
Good comp.
Number 4, we have Hassan. She's shown up a few times also in our nominees for these awards, right? She ran 3 events in the Olympics, the 5,000 bronze medal, remember 10,000 bronze medal, and that amazing sprint finish for the gold in the marathon.
And our last nominee for Female Runner of the Year, again, somebody who has got multiple nominations here. She's like the I'm trying to think of
Meryl
Academy Award
Streep.
films. She is the Meryl Streep, or like if she were a film, she'd be like, what's like one of these films that gets like 12 nominations or whatever. She's like she's like Titanic, or
I was going to say
English
Parasite,
Patient.
but I don't want to call her a parasite.
She's like the Parasite of no. Oh, that was a great film. Jasmine Paris, first woman to ever finish the Barkley Marathon in 15 hours, 58 minutes, 21 seconds. Just 99 seconds to spare because there's a 16-hour cutoff. And we should call her Dame Jasmine Paris. Make that correction. That is her full moniker now. So those are our nominees. Who do we got? Alex, who's your pick?
Oh, this exercise revealed to myself what I really thought about Ruth Chepngetich. It's wild.
Yeah.
I didn't want to come to any conclusion, and for some reason, I couldn't give it to her. I feel bad. Also, I'm waiting to find out more. The time seems almost too good. I went with Beatrice Chebet. And the reason it became a Beatrice Chebet versus Sifan Hassan showdown for me, 2 absolute Olympic greats. And the reason I went with Chebet is I think you can make a case for Chebet being the GOAT in an event. You can't really do that with Hassan right now. I can,
Good point.
but I
Good
like
point.
people can debate me on this because they could ask me why do you have no skepticism around Chebet and why do you have skepticism around Chepngetich? The best thing I can say is the degree to which Chepngetich broke the former marathon world record compared to Chebet is much larger, and that's the best argument that I have. It's a feeling. So Chebet's my pick. She had an amazing Olympic run, and then running under 29 minutes for 10K, being the first woman to do so is incredible. And I don't know. It's hard to pick her over Hassan. Hassan had a tremendous Olympics, but Chebet gets my vote.
Who do you got, Tassi?
This, it's so hard. And to listen to Alex go first, I mean, I already had my clear winner, but he always makes me double think. I did go with Hassan. I went with Hassan. I mean, she did break a record because she did break the Olympic marathon. Because I was also trying to figure it out like that. I was trying to think, okay, record breaking. Did this person also break a record? She did. The Olympic marathon record. I just think, medaling in 3, she didn't get 3 gold medals, but she got 3 medals. She ran 5,000, 10,000, and the marathon. So I did go with Hassan. I'm interested to hear if Michael went with one of ours or if he went out on his own.
This is so tough. I mean, this is the most like to employ the cliche that we often hear in talking about elite distance running. This is a stacked field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're right, Alex. This is a really interesting litmus test for how you feel about Ruth Chepngetich's world record performance. Just line her up next to these other superlative performances and athletes from 2024, and your gut just tells you one thing. And I'm in the same spot you are. If I felt that this was a absolutely squeaky clean situation, she's the obvious pick because
Hands
of
down.
how massive a performance that was.
Right.
But I have questions and I'm troubled by it. So I veered away from it as well. I really want to pick Beatrice Chibet because I love the way she runs. I love her performances this year. I think she might end up being, really one of the all-time great track performers, and probably will turn into, if she wants to, turn into a great road distance runner as well. Love to see what she can do in the marathon. But I think about with this award, I take a step back and I think about when I close my eyes and I think about 2024 and say 10 years, what's the face that emerges? Who is the defining character of this year? And it's for me either Jasmine Paris or Sifan Hassan, and I'm going Sifan Hassan because I think the Olympics, for better or worse, are the high water mark in track and field and distance running, and you've got to elevate your game. And I think what she did in the marathon on the back of those two other performances is just absolutely extraordinary. And I think she is somebody who, the way she performs, her personality, the way she's positioned herself as an athlete, her performance in the marathon and the Olympics is iconic. And I think she's somebody who might become kind of the next Kipchoge. We've talked about this before. Mm-hmm. So I'm going with you, Katelyn. I have nominated Sifan for Female Athlete of the Year, and we're 2-1. How do you feel about that, Alex?
I'm outnumbered, but I don't feel too bad about it. It's not a victory that I'm upset to concede. Sifan Hassan is very deserving. So, I mean, I debated between the two. So, yeah.
Congratulations.
So we can have, we'll send her the award. She can accept it.
Come on up.
She can accept it wearing that like weird gaudy cooling headband that she had on when she crossed the finish line. Oh, God. Weird running photo of the year winner. Yeah. Okay. Our final category of these first annual MH awards, we've left one that's near and dear to Katelyn's heart. It's the Ultra Trail Runner of the Year award. We have got 5 nominees. Let's go through them, Alex. Who we got first?
So we have Katie Scheid, who won Western States this year most famously, but also set a UTMB record. So, I mean, you're the expert here, Katelyn, but having a few massive ultra performances in a year can't be easy.
No, absolutely not. She's amazing. Katie Scheid is shining through the ultra world this year. For nominee number 2, of course, we will see her again, Jasmine Paris. How can we not mention her and the Barkley Marathons?
And the third nominee, Jim Walmsley, the great American ultra runner who won Western States this year. One of the big crown jewels of the ultra running scene globally, the Western States 100. And although he did struggle at UTMB, but with a DNF and an injury. But Jim Walmsley, you win Western States, you got to be on the list, I think. All right, who's the next one?
Number 4 is our boy Vincent Brouillard. So, as we mentioned, UTMB winner, and also we should state that his time, because his performance was there was a bit of a caveat around it. Some people made the story a bit more about Jim Walmsley DNFing or certain names not being around, but Brouillard was no slouch. It was the 3rd fastest time in race history. So he's a nominee number 4.
Okay, and nominee number 5. How can we have Ultra Runner of the Year without mentioning Courtney Walter? Of course, she ran and won Hard Rock this year and set a course record. And the laundry list of her achievements just continues to grow year after year. So she's always got to be up there.
All right. Who we got, Alex? Who's your ultra trail runner of the year? Because
I know where this is going.
I can feel, Katelyn. We're gonna This is here's a little like message in a bottle for future Alex. It's like, so Alex, when you invariably become an ultra runner in 10 years time.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to give him
You're going
20
to look
years.
back on this pick. No. So you pick. Who's your pick, Alex?
It's not happening, guys. It's not happening. Listen, I don't know why I am picking more emotionally in this category than I tried to do for the men's and women's runners of the year. Though I guess you could argue I went emotionally that I didn't pick Chep and Getich. So, okay, fine. I'm picking emotionally today, but
Okay.
my pick goes to Vincent Brouillard,
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
yeah, the reason for it's a story. It's a story. Maybe this belongs more in the inspirational runner of the year, but I love the story. One more thing that we didn't mention about Brouillard yet that really won me over is this guy went into the race hoping to break 30 hours. Okay? He broke 20 hours. Now again, I haven't done an ultra race, but I feel like cutting a third of the time from your expected time
It's a big deal.
is not that common in the sport. So I'm gonna go with Brouillard. He's my champ.
Okay.
Is
I
that
love
like
it
if
though.
is that like if you go into like you're thinking I'm going to break 3 hours at the Chicago Marathon and then you break 2 hours?
You break
Is
2 hours. That's
yeah,
it. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know what happened. I just went
Just
158. Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Just felt good in that first 5K, so I decided to run some 245 kilometers. You
Oh my
know.
It
goodness.
was hard because there were 500 people ahead of me that I had to weave around.
Okay, Katelyn, tell us who we should be picking here.
Okay, and this is interesting because I kind of am pulling an Alex with this
Oh,
because Alex, it's funny, right? We're looking at the road runners and the track runners, and we're looking at times, and we're looking at broken records, and we're trying to choose the fastest and the best. But I feel like trail running, and I agree with you. I feel like trail running opens up a whole nother chapter in running, and it's not just about the times. And I know that maybe Michael is going to completely disagree with this comment and say, oh no, Katelyn, that's such a cop out. Times are the most important thing. Being the fastest is the most important thing. But I am choosing, well, I don't know. It depends, right? I also do feel like it's super important to be fast. And Katie Scheid, amazing, super fast runner, incredible performance. And I admire her speed. But sometimes in trail running, I like to look at being tough rather than being fast, because sometimes you're going to hit those ultras like Michael saw in Hong Kong. It was a tough race. It wasn't just about being the fastest runner. It's not always about being the fastest runner. We sometimes talk about that in the hillier marathons. It's not always about being the fastest runner, about being the toughest runner or the smartest runner or someone who can push through. So with all of that, I'm going with Jasmine Paris, because I feel like she showed the world that she is the toughest woman ultra runner out there right now by defeating the most difficult ultra race on the planet. So that's who I'm going with.
wow.
You think Michael's gonna say no? Michael's thinking, oh yes, she picked my girl. I'm thinking, yes, we won. Jasmine, come get your awards.
I picked Katie Scheid.
I thought you would.
What?
I thought you would
Yeah.
because of the speed and the record. That's kind of what but tell us why. I want to know why.
UTMB record, breaking DeWalter's record. DeWalter is sort of like the Michael Jordan of ultra running. And, you know, when you break one of Michael Jordan's records, that's kind of a big deal.
Yep.
And also winning Western States, which if I'm, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a really tight turnaround between Western States and UTMB. And to do both of those events and kind of dominate in both of them is really impressive. And she also won another UTMB event earlier this year as well. So that's just a lot of hardware that you can't turn away from. And, you know, she keeps doing this for a couple of years. It's going to be tough to say that she's not better than Courtney Dauwalter, right? So that's why she's my pick. Although, Katelyn, close number 2.
Yeah.
Jasmine Parrott.
Yeah.
Wait, so what do we do here?
Yeah, what do we do? This
We
is
have
the
a-
What do we
first.
do? We
This
got
is the
3
first
different.
time
Oh boy.
we've all chose someone different. What do we do?
Do we open it up to audience members to make the call for us?
Oh.
Well, I think our audience members are allowed to chime in on all of these
Yes.
Yeah, fair
awards
enough.
and certainly provide your pick. I'm tempted to sway towards Katelyn here,
What do you
because I
think,
think that
Alex?
was a really special moment in certainly in trail running, but
Yeah.
definitely in running overall too.
Yeah. And I think, look, like we're not going to hide it. Caitlin, you have your finger on the pulse a bit tighter than the rest of us here. So you you're closest to the trail running zeitgeist. If you say Paris,
All
I think
right.
we go Paris.
Meryl Streep has to win one, right?
Exactly. I think that the Barkley is sort of an outlier in the ultra trail world. It's sort of seen as the kind of like I don't know, the wicked stepsister. There's the weirdo event, and I think that the real ones, they look at UTMB, Western States, Hard Rock, and that is how they evaluate who the best real ultra trail runners are. But you can't deny Jasmine Paris's performance in the Barkley. It was just such a big deal. So are we good with giving her the ultra trail runner of the year?
Awesome.
Yep.
Let's do it. Jasmine Paris, come back up, get another. Does she like bring little statuettes like you? It's kind of like the ultimate flex at the Oscars. You've already got one, and then you go up to get your second one. You got two in your hands.
Yeah.
And you're doing the Vanity Fair party afterwards. You got both Oscars. You're just walking around with both of them the entire night. That's what she's doing at our after party. All right, guys, we did it. We've given out our first annual Marathon Handbook year-end awards. We'll put those all together, put them in the show notes. I think we're going to put a story together on the site as well, and put a link to that in the days to come, kind of recapping them all and our choices. Obviously, if you're listening and you disagree with our picks, or you have your own write-in candidate, obviously you can put it in the comments in our video version of the podcast on YouTube, which we do. Or if you're listening on, I think on Spotify now has comments as well. So you can actually add comments in Spotify. So please do that as well. Before wrapping this up, guys, we've got a couple of exciting things to look forward to here. First things first. Is it next week? Are we getting together next week?
I can't
We're getting
wait.
together next week.
I can't wait.
Okay, so the running event, for all those of you listening who are not aware of what the running event is, it's like a big industry conference that takes place in Austin, Texas every year at the end of the year, and it's happening next week. So next week, Alex, Katelyn, and I will be podding from the same room for the first time ever.
Amazing.
It's going to be so much
It's going to
fun.
be wicked.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're just working out the details on it now. I think we figured out a space for recording the pod. We're going to shoot a version of it as well. And we're trying to figure out whether or not we can live stream it on YouTube and maybe even Instagram and Facebook at the same time. We're just trying to figure out when we're going to record it and whether or not we can pull off that live stream or not. At the very least, we'll have a video version of it, which should be hilarious to watch us in the room together, talking face to face. It's going to be so weird.
It is going to be weird.
Yeah. So we got a lot to look forward to. We're going to be at the running event Alex is absolutely schedule filled. You're like basically seeing every single shoe brand talking about what's coming out in the next year, right?
Mm-hmm. Everyone has a 30-minute slot, one after the other. So we will be running around the floor.
And then Katelyn and I will also be talking to various brands, seeing what their offerings are, and doing a lot of content around that. We'll do some stories on the site. We'll do some stuff on social media. And then obviously, like, you're just going to get this crazy blast of video content about what's coming in 2025 in the gear world. And our podcast next week, if you've noticed, we did not talk gear at all in this pod.
Saving it.
We're going to do our Gear of the Year Awards podcast. Will be our special live from Austin episode. I think that's it. We're good, guys. We've covered it all. We've given out the hardware. I'm excited for next week.
See you guys in Austin.
Guys, yeah, you guys you're all packed. We're all ready to go.
Almost
a week early. haven't even thought about it yet. I haven't even emptied my Hong Kong suitcase yet.
Oh,
So maybe I'll
geez.
just leave it all in there. And
Yeah.
just, yeah. All right, guys. So last thing, if you're listening to this podcast, you're deep into this podcast and you don't subscribe to the pod, you can do so. We're on all the podcasting platforms. Give us a rating and a review if you can. It really helps us out a lot to reach more people like you. We're also on YouTube. We do a video version of this podcast every single episode. You can check us out on YouTube as well. And Alex has got the best training shoes of the year video roundup that's on our channel right now. Check that out. And if you don't subscribe already to our newsletter, it goes out Monday to Friday. You can go to our site or click the link in the show notes to subscribe to our newsletter. It's always awesome content. Katelyn and Jesse both put it together and they do a great job. So, all right, guys, thanks very much for listening. And we'll see you next week in Austin, Texas.
Austin.
Literally.
Literally.